When I realized that I had 10 dishes left, there was something inside of me that was like, this is gonna end. And I hadn't really realized that, it's such a huge book and there's so much stuff to do that it never actually occurred to me that I would finish it. I got down to the last dish and there was this sort of sense of suspense and excitement kind of building. Sarah and all of my friends are like, this is gonna be great. But I was sad, I was sad this is ending and I kind of don't want it to. And then the last dish itself, it was fine. It wasn't my favorite dish of the whole project, and it wasn't my least favorite dish. It was just the way that it ended. In 2008, we went to a restaurant in Chicago that one of my friends had told me about. It was this crazy molecular gastronomy restaurant where they serve you plates of foams and gels and stuff like that. And I didn't really think of it as like anything particularly different from anything else I'd ever eaten before until I got there and was like, what is this? Alinea specializes in a type of cuisine most people call molecular gastronomy. And most people think of molecular gastronomy as like sciencey cooking. A lot of powders and foams, gels, a lot of, basically very heavily manipulated food. Like what they're doing is not really about foams and powders. It's incorporating emotion as an ingredient in their dishes. When you taste it, there's something familiar about it. The way my dad used to burn leaves in the backyard as a kid, or this reminds me of like the way bubblegum tastes from a parade. And I felt like I had Windex sprayed in my eyes or something. Like I was just like, oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like this. How are they doing this? How does this work? And I was obsessed enough about it that Sarah was like, yeah, let's get you this cookbook and you can figure out how they're doing all this. The whole thing is around 400 and some odd pages. There are 107 dishes and 400 and some odd components. Each dish is made up of these sort of little sub-recipes. It's just an object of beauty. It doesn't scale anything down. It doesn't really make it any easier for a home chef. But I was curious about it, so I thought I would try one. And then ever since then, I've just kind of kept going. I don't remember ever making a decision, I'm gonna make everything. It was more that I never made the decision to stop. I've shot like 10,000, 12,000 photos over the course of it, and the whole thing lasted about 5 years just to go start to finish through all 107 recipes in the book. On its face, it's me cooking every dish in this cookbook, but I guess in my head it's quite a bit more than that.
I've often wondered if he was like this before he started Alinea, or if Alinea sort of brought it out of him, and this tenacity, obsession, whatever you want to call it, like this determination that he's had with the whole project. He's just become more ferocious.
I don't really know what the magnitude scale is, but it's 10, whatever that scale is. It's like all the way at the ridiculous end. It was a little bit addictive. Every time I'd finished one dish, I would just be excited to do the next one. I started spending months and months researching, like, this is where I get this fish, or this is where I get this seaweed. A couple of them involved service pieces that I couldn't get a hold of. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna just figure out how to make my own. And so I started taking classes for like welding or woodworking or machining classes, all this other crazy stuff. The dishes were awesome. They were just as perfect as I could have made them, and that felt so satisfying and really like, this is great. We had a dish like this the first time we ate at Alinea, and I was like, how did they do this?
This stuff is crazy.
The taffy?
Yeah, because you just don't expect it to be that thick.
What do you give it?
It's all the way awesome.
Yeah?
It's so good.
Is this like one of the favorites you would say of the whole thing?
Yeah. I always feel a little bad because like I express my emotions on a scale of like 1 to 5, and Alan is like on a 1 to 20. And so when I'm like, oh, that was great, like I genuinely am like really excited about it. So I feel a little bit of like, I gotta like put on a good show when I'm eating your dish. Even though it's like genuinely good, I'm always a little like,
you gotta make your eyebrows go up a little higher than normal.
so that you know that I like it.
Yeah, thanks.
I mean, I'm a pretty picky eater. I don't like sauces. I like some sauces. I've gotten a lot better since being with him. But yeah, the gels, like that's just a texture that I just can't get on board with. There's a lot of sous vide meat. That's the water bath down there that he was cooking the bubble gum in. It's just like a little soft cube of meat. The monkfish thing I just flat out didn't try. Foie gras, nope. It's challenging. It's a pretty overwhelming amount of time that he's put into this. So he'll like shop on a Thursday or Friday, and then he'll spend all day Saturday and almost all day Sunday, and then he'll shoot it, and then he'll put it on his blog, and that's like, that's the entire weekend. It's the Alinea project.
I got to a point, I don't know, 2/3, 3/4 of the way through. It's just sort of turned into this obsession, and I was like, can I do them as excellently as they do it in the restaurant? And so I kind of got it in my head that I wasn't doing a good job.
He's very hard on himself, and that's just part of his wiring. It's hard to undo that wiring.
And it got to be kind of a problem until at one point Sarah noticed that I was like bummed out about it a lot, and she was kind of like, why are you doing this?
It was, it was hard to see.
It made me feel lonely, and seeing how much it was impacting her made me feel suddenly very unlonely, like we're kind of in this together. I had to sort of figure out what doing a good job meant. As the project evolved, I sort of took this detour. I was really concerned with the way the restaurant saw me, and I kind of wanted to get their attention. I kind of equated doing a good job with like getting some sort of positive feedback from the chef, from Atkins itself, and that became this like ferocious need. This is where I get disappointed. I'll cook it a little bit longer and see what happens. This could be very anticlimactic. Alinea itself is co-owned by Nick Kokonis and Grant Achatz. Grant used to work with Thomas Keller at the French Laundry. He's an extremely talented chef. While I was working my way through the book, he was larger than life to me. He was just this mysterious figure in my head, like this guy is a genius, and I kind of was like, I want to buddy up with you, but I don't know how to do it. Eventually I sort of came into contact with him. He was very brief, like his emails were super terse. So I took it to mean like, yeah, he's not into me at all, he's not into this. Anyway, at one point, about halfway into the project, there's a dish, this ridiculous dish involving the spiral of 2 gels. And so when I tried it, it fell apart. I'd just get it to kind of flop over, and then it would just kind of collapse. And I made it, remade it, and remade it, and remade it, and I just couldn't get it working. So I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna add more gelatin, which made a firmer gel, and I was able to make the spiral that way, but I was like, I probably cheated. It doesn't taste the right way, I suck. And so I wrote him an email and was like, I can't get this thing to work. Can you give me just a couple tips? And I waited and waited and waited for several days and sort of thought, he's not gonna respond. And eventually he did. And it was just one line. It said, can you come to Chicago, I'll do you a demo. I presumed that meant he was gonna like have pre-made some gels and would demonstrate, here's how you do this roll, and that the whole thing would last like 5 minutes. That is not what happened. So I bought my ticket and flew to Chicago. And I've made this decision up front, like I'm not gonna take a camera, I'm not gonna write about this. Photography affects a relationship between one person and another. So I was like, all right, no cameras. I showed up on a rainy day one afternoon in Chicago, and spent an afternoon with him. Do you want me to tell this story about this?
Yeah.
Okay. I had the back door of the restaurant there, 1723 North Halsted, and I was like, all right. So I pulled my phone out and took one photo. It was the only photo I took for the date. I knocked on the back door, no one was there, and so I sort of threw it open, and it empties directly into the Alinea kitchen. There's like 50 chefs in their whites there. He was like, hey, what's up? He's welcome. Give me 5 minutes here. He said, we're right in the middle of finishing up some prep work, and then it was just like he and I hanging out in the kitchen together. And he pulls out some papers and throws them down on the countertop, and he's like, all right, come here, tell me what went wrong. And I was like, oh, we're gonna make this from scratch. Our little gels are not set yet. There's still some time to kill. And so chef sort of like looks around and he's like, well, it's not quite ready yet. Do you want to help us plate some stuff? And while the whole rest of the day was totally terrifying, like that moment was maybe the most comfortable, because I was like, well, I know how to do this. And then one of the front of the house guys comes over and he's like, are these ready to go? And I was like, yep, takes them out. And I was like, I just did that. That's crazy. And then the chef was like, all right, let's see how these gels are doing. And he starts trying to roll them, and they did the same thing. They fell apart. And he said, well, I mean, that recipe could be wrong. It could just be wrong. And I was like, I spent the past 2.5 years trusting that everything was right. I sort of treated it like a Bible. So for him to sort of casually be like, oh yeah, I could be wrong. No, it's, and I was like, so how do you fix it then? He said, yeah, you just add some more gelatin, which is the thing that I'd done. And I was like, I was right. And it was this kind of amazing moment where I just felt like, I don't know, I felt so wound up about this project and about like feeling like I wasn't good enough and that I was kind of just a hack. And to realize that I had made a decision on my own and that it had been the right one, even as insignificant as that is, like, it just made me feel so validating. I had always assumed up to that point that when things went wrong, it was because I was messing up. Like, it made me approach the book in a very different way, where I sort of learned how to trust myself. So that shaped all of the rest of the recipes. Like, I sort of regarded creativity as this, like, you go to sleep at night and you get struck by inspiration. And I was like, well, maybe it's willingness to keep doing something until you get it honed, and just accepting that it was going to take me a while to work up to that and being okay with it and being ready for it is, I guess, something that I learned and I would want to impart on myself years ago. Just be like, hang in there, dude. You'll get better at this.